And we're recording. We didn't get any of that slow intro before because I had to delete some stuff. Thank you, StreamYard. This is what happens when you do stuff on the fly, when you do it live. I'm your host, Kareem Anderson. I want to welcome everyone back to another episode of Microsoft Unboxed pod. This is episode 74, and I am joined today with.
David Allen, we have our production snafus, we have our Windows news, we have our Xbox, we have no money. Microsoft has money, but maybe they're not spending it in the right places, but we'll see.
Yeah, we got a lot to talk about. As my partner was alluding to, we're going to give you guys the news of the week, which happens to cover Microsoft's earnings. There were some other people who did. It seems like everyone's doing well. Apple did very well. Google did well. The key takeaway from all of these earnings are AI. Now, the underbelly, the dark underbelly, is what we're going to get into about Microsoft. There's some, while AI and cloud doing well, there are some big kind of warning signs if you're an investor to kind of look out for if you're not looking to cash out in the next year or so. Then we're going to move over to a new partnership between Microsoft and OpenAI, following OpenAI's recapitalization, meaning they went from nonprofit to profit. And what are they going to do with all that profit? Probably put it back into resources that they are burning at a beatnik clip. So we're going to talk about where Microsoft stands to earn from this move, despite previous rumors and speculation that they were trying to keep this from happening for other business reasons. Then we were talking about Microsoft trying to basically emulate the success of Office, but with gaming, because that's what we all want, is for gaming to be like Microsoft Office. We're also going to talk about Amazon had a big slashing, but they weren't the only ones. But we will focus on Amazon because they're the largest of the bunch at 14,000 jobs cut in the spirit of AI, which, again, we've been saying for almost a year now, maybe a little bit longer, that AI is going to be a job killer. We'll hint about other companies that have also followed suit this week, basically. I think we have about I think it's upwards of 25,000 jobs cut over 5 different companies, most of them in the thousands at once. We're also going to talk about what some people can start doing with all their free time, unfortunately. They can play around with a new creative suite that maybe may earn them some money as a influencer or on social media or as a content creator or maybe just a second job in the field of editing, marketing, or whatnot. Canva is back with a big announcement. They had kind of their own event, and they brought Affinity back with them. Affinity disappeared, went ghost on us for a few months. They're back, and they had a big announcement. Everyone was fearing about prices. We'll tell you what they had to say about that. Then we're going to round out this pod talking about free play days because, again, we like to then end on a happy note. With that being said, you jump in. Let me know your thoughts, how you're feeling for the week before we get into the news.
Well, I think tech wise, it's been a good week. Personally, maybe not so great, but tech wise, I enjoyed the Canva announcement yesterday. I really enjoyed that announcement. And before we jump into that, I was I do my best thinking sometimes in the shower, and I was in the shower this morning, and I was kind of going over what I wanted to talk about in my head, and you know I kept going back to that Canva presentation yesterday, and some of the things they said, and overall. When we get these presentations, they're wanting us to buy something. They're wanting us, to show you the new features. So in turn, you go buy something. This was the first presentation I felt like I had seen in a while where people just said, "We want you to create. We want you to use our products." Now, I know we're going to say why that is later in the pod, and I'm not going to spoil it here, but that was the first presentation where as they're talking, I'm clicking on canva.com. I'm looking, I'm reading, I'm seeing what things are going to cost me, what things aren't going to cost me. Because at the end of that presentation, I really wanted to go use their product. That's the way I felt. I didn't feel like we were competing. I felt like they want you to go use their product and create things and do things. It was This is available for $12.99. shipping tomorrow. Put your credit card down. We would like that, please. Thank you. Have a good day. It really had a different feeling, and that was something I enjoyed.
I mean, why postpone it? Let's get into that conversation. I'll actually let you run off with that first topic.
Well, okay. As we know, as I was just alluded to, Canva had a really big announcement yesterday. As we know, Seraph, that's how I pronounce it, acquired Affinity Photo and Affinity Designer earlier this year. And October 1st, Affinity kind of went dark and left people wondering what was going to happen. They just said October 30th, we will show you what's new. And everybody thought, oh man, they're going that subscription model. I'm going to have to choose which subscription I'm going to pay for. And there are subscriptions, yes, but as far as what we thought, I think we couldn't be more wrong. Affinity, let's go ahead and put it out of the bag. The Affinity products are free. They are free forever. No subscription, no money, no credit card required. So feel free to grab those products, jump in, and create. Now, AI, as we know, is not free. So if you want the AI parts where you can edit your videos, you can replace the background, which was also something they upgraded, by the way, you have to pay for your subscription to get those AI features. But look at that price. The typical one most people are going to go for is $120 a year. There's an enterprise business one that's $200 a year. The $200 a year one gets you access to other AI models that will come later that aren't here yet, plus the ability to work with your teams. But my point is, when you look at Canva now, as you're seeing on the screen for those that can watch, you have the ability to edit your photos, you have the ability to edit your videos, you have AI now baked in to the entire Canva suite. I won't go over each and every feature that was demoed. You can go check out the link in our post and watch the complete YouTube presentation for yourself. But the hammer has been thrown at Adobe, I think. And I don't think the hammer is thrown where you think. I think Adobe keeps the enterprise customer, the people that are doing real movie work, 3D animations, etc. Adobe's fine. But for the consumer, the prosumer, the YouTuber, the Twitch, the TikTok, now you have another choice. I have used the program briefly last night. I paid my $120 because my Adobe subscription ran out 3 days ago. So I think I'm switching from what I have seen so far. I think this will do it for most people, most of our social media creators, our marketing teams out there. Canva has done a nice job. Now, I will throw this out there. We talked about it off mic. It's available for Mac, it's available for Windows. It's coming later for iPad and coming later for Android. So we don't have tablet support yet, but at least we've got Mac and PC in there. What did you think? I know we enjoyed kind of chit chatting back to get back and forth while this was going on. What did you think? And have you put down your $120 yet? I have a feeling you have, or you're going to.
I'm going to. It's weird. Before I get into all the things I liked about it, I think you and I talked about. I got an email from Adobe saying, "Here's a credit," and I
Oh
think
yeah, I
you
got
got
that
the
too.
same one. And I need to go check Reddit. Maybe I'll write about this. That I think it's not a coincidence. The two of us who live in very different areas got a credit from Adobe within minutes of the Canva announcement ending. It was the craziest thing. I'll have to check the timestamp, but it was relatively within like 30 minutes. of the announcement ending and Adobe saying, "Oh, here, we're giving your credit back." You said this a very similar experience. I do wonder how many people got a credit back because Affinity is very good at replicating a lot of the features from Adobe, and they one of their features that they talked about during this announcement was that they were converting all of their extensions into one. So you no longer need to have a PSD, a separate AVI, a separate impact. Like you could take these assets, convert them from Photoshop into Canva and vice versa. And I think a lot of people who will now, as we're going to get into this conversation, be a little more price conscious going into the holiday, at least here in the States. I think there's an economic sort of recession, at least a feeling of it, maybe not an official one, but a feeling of it across the world. I think the inflation's up across the world. People are becoming a little more price conscious about where they're spending their money and where they can or cannot do that. And I think for a lot of people, to your point, they may not be the professionals who could afford the $60 a month from Adobe because their job is subsidizing that. And again, their job might be a professional in a studio somewhere where they're like, hey, we'll just pay for the whole year, pay for 3 years at a time. Don't worry about it. Just get your creative stuff done. There are a lot of us who are choosing to use perhaps DaVinci Resolve as a combination with GIMP or maybe Affinity Photo. I use it with Filmora. I do use DaVinci Resolve sometimes. I don't pay for the full 250, which I should, but I haven't. And Adobe's still there. It's still a great product, but I do wonder if they had somebody in PR understand, hey, we're about to get hit with a bunch of people who are going to try this out. To my partner's own lived experience, a bunch of people are going to run out and try this, and it's free. Again, free. You get about 90% of the software. What you're not getting is a lot of the AI features, which are good. Adobe does offer that in their subscription, and they're very good. But if you can live without the AI, if you just know how to run regular Photoshop and kind of do things as they are, then you're going to have a good time with this. And again, I wonder if Adobe is like, all right, well, let's make sure that they don't leave for too long. Let's give them some money back. They can feel like, hey, at least they get a free month trial to try both of us, and we can win on that merit. So anyway, I rambled on to say that I confirm and agree with David's assessment that, the competition has been laid down. $120 for the year is still much cheaper than, again, like I said, it's $60, depending on like all the features you get from Adobe. If you're just someone who uses Photoshop and Premiere, I think I don't even know if there's a plan for that. I think there's Photoshop and like Lightroom, and then there's like Premiere by itself. I think between the two, it's still like 40 something bucks a month. And you extrapolate that over a full year, you're still, paying more just for those two products than you would with Canva. Now, again, Canva doesn't offer a video editor, which that is a big key thing. But you can, again, like I said, you can supplement that with Filmora, you can DaVinci Resolve. I think you can do, if you have an iPad, I think, what is the other one called? I'm drawing a blank, but there's a good one on iPad that you can use. There's several different other things that you can use to kind of take the place of that. So with that being said, we're going to move on to our next topic, which is Microsoft's earnings. I'm going to cover a lot of this because my partner had to step away for a second. So I'm going to give you the news as best I can, all by my lonesome. Bear with me. I'm going to kind of keep it short, not get too into the weeds about everything, but Microsoft closed out its fiscal year 2025 with a huge number. Something that a lot, I don't even think Microsoft expected, especially when they gave their notes for what to expect last quarter for this quarter. They ended with $77 billion in quarterly revenue, up about 18%, and about $30.8 billion in profit. Again, that's up 22%. Azure continues to be the crown jewel of the reporting. It hit about $75 billion in annual revenue, which is huge. Microsoft Cloud brought in about $46.7 billion just in the quarter alone. That's up about 27%. This productivity tools like Microsoft 365 and Dynamics saw a double-digit growth in the same quarter as well, which is pretty amazing. But those are all the cloud numbers. Here's where we kind of like to give you guys a little bit of some talking points, especially if you're going to go have some conversation with some friends and you want to sound different than them just praising all of the great numbers. Microsoft spent about $35 billion this quarter. That's a lot. Almost half on chips and the rest on data centers. And that's, again, obviously to support their AI efforts. But it's a huge bet. And you've heard us here on this pod. We've been talking about how we're starting to think that bet's not going to pay off. So $35 billion and it doesn't pay off, especially if it doesn't pay off in the next couple of years, it's going to look really bad. That's a massive bet. It's also squeezing Microsoft's margin. They could have had probably even better numbers, depending, if they didn't do that. The operating expense, their operating expense rose about 6%, and the margin dropped about almost 70%, just on those inflated numbers of spending. Again, if the AI bubble deflates and adoption slows, which there are signs that it is, especially with OpenAI being the marker because they have the largest user base. And again, I think they're only monetizing about 5% of this, millions upon hundreds of millions of people using it. Not a good sign. On the consumer side, it's also not very good for Microsoft. And again, we know they're not a consumer company, but they do offer products. And if you're going to offer products, you need to make a profit. So Windows revenue rose about 3%, which is surprising because apparently there are people still out there buying brand new computers on the Windows side. I feel like there are ebbs and flows and cycles, but it's been rebounding over the last 3 years. So it's good to see that, again, people are making good computers and people are finding ways to make use of them. The Xbox content and services jumped 13%. And who knows, that's partly because they're pushing everything towards that. I mean, there are no real good exclusives right now that push consoles, so they're not marketing the Xbox as much, which is indicative of an Xbox hardware sales falling about 22%. And again, I don't think it's because everyone stopped buying from Costco. Maybe perhaps in bulk that's an issue. But again, Microsoft made the shift towards digital mostly. So this is in line. I think they were expecting this, maybe not to the degree of the fall off, but when you don't offer a console exclusive, these are the numbers you're going to get. So while Microsoft's cloud and AI strategy is driving growth forward and creating some, new avenues, there's a big risk at the end of the tunnel. I think Satya Nadella framed what the earnings report kind of clearly shows, that there's a long-term transformative investment and not a short-term one. But if you're an investor, they're a company that's going to be, tipping I think it's 3 trillion or maybe 4 at this point evaluation. You may want to get out while the getting's good, because once people start to realize that AI is not going to be this revolutionary thing and more like a really cool new version of search, you may not get to that 3 trillion. You might still get to 1. You might even get to 2 at some point. But if you have stock right now and you're budging across that $3 trillion mark with everybody else, you may want to consider reinvesting somewhere else. The other thing I see, which is interesting in some of these numbers, is just where Microsoft is, basically, valuing its time and efforts with everything. Give me 1 second. It looks like we lost our cameras. And I am back. Sorry about that. Yeah, seems like maybe it's a ghost. Maybe it's a ghost in the machine. We're having some spooky technical issues with our tech right now, but we will get back to it. The other thing we got as far as news is concerned is OpenAI has finally consolidated and done its recapitalization. Apparently, it's a term in the industry for when a company goes from profit to nonprofit. So that is what OpenAI is doing. It's a big structural shift. The company now operates as a public benefit corporation called OpenAI Group, PBC, Public Benefit Corporation, which sits under the nonprofit OpenAI Foundation. The foundation holds about a 26% stake, which again, this is some concessions they made in order for the nonprofit group to be okay with them becoming for profit. So now they can at least take the money that's coming in to fund more research directly. Microsoft owns 27%, which is about, it's valued at 135 billion, because OpenAI is worth a lot right now, at least on paper. And the remaining 47% is split among employees and investors. You got to make everyone happy if you're going to be doing this big, philosophical shift. If you're going from, hey, we just want to make AI for research to now we're going to make tons of money off of it. I think people who were developing it for research kind of understood, like, there's not a lot to be financially gained from this. Kind of like the healthcare market. Like, you shouldn't monetize these things. But when you can, you squeeze the margins, you can find a way to do it. Just, again, it may be to the detriment of its users and customer base. The new setup gives OpenAI more flexibility to raise capital or strike deals. It's clear that the path for major investments, like SoftBank, who I think dropped in about 30 billion, and I think Microsoft put in about 200, or I guess there's a $250 billion contract between Microsoft and OpenAI to use Azure, which goes to that, what do you call it? The three-card Monte shuffling of money amongst these two companies, where new money's not coming in, but money's being reinvested. And on paper, it's making the company seem more valuable. Hey, if I give you this much in Azure contract, I can then put on my paper that Azure has a contract for $250 million, which will generate this amount of imaginary revenue. And investors go, yay! And how many people did you fire? That's all we need to know. How much revenue, how many people are fired? We'll get to that later. It also allows OpenAI to pursue partnerships and acquisitions, that they probably could have done as a non-profit, legally speaking. OpenAI now has to balance commercial growth with the original mission of AI safety and alignment, which I think they've thrown that out the window about 2 years ago. So who knows what safety and alignment means to them. But regulators in California and Delaware approved of the structure, but they say they'll be keeping a close eye. We'll see who actually does. I feel like Europe will be keeping a much closer eye, and we'll look to them for guidance, unfortunately. For Microsoft's portion of the recapitalization, with a $3.1 billion hit to net income this quarter, because they put in for this to happen. Satya Nadella called the partnership historic. Microsoft retains exclusive IP rights through 2032, including access to future AGI or agentic models, AGI models, which will be verified by independent panel. However, Microsoft gave up its exclusive cloud rights. So we'll see how big of a hit that is to, we had, skyworthy cloud numbers last quarter. Now that you're giving them exclusive rights, and OpenAI being one of the biggest consumers of your cloud, we'll see what happens. But now OpenAI can work with other providers. Again, this is one of the trade-offs we talked about months ago when these two were kind of, at each other's throats, at least dramatically speaking in the tech news. Bottom line is OpenAI gets more capital and freedom while Microsoft deepens its AI portfolio. Again, remember, they're also working with their own small language models, Anthropic. We haven't heard much about X. X is kind of a weird one, but they're still working with them. I would advise them not to, but hey, they're worth trillions. I'm worth dollars. But again, if AGI doesn't become real, if Sam Altman becomes the next, Elon Musk with a lot of promises, but not a lot delivered, if this browser doesn't succeed, Microsoft could be, left holding a pretty significant bag because they're still heavily invested in them. We're going to move on to our next topic, which is Microsoft trying to emulate Office with Xbox, because again, that's the two things you don't want to put together: Xbox and Office. There's people play Xbox to get away from Office. You deal with Office for 8 hours a day at work, maybe 9, 10, depending on how diligent of a worker you are. And then on your off time, you don't go home back and say, all right, let me do some more Office. You say, let me go do some Xbox. Let me go do some fun things. Let me go do something different. Well, Satya Nadella says, business-wise, they aren't too different. Maybe you're the problem. Microsoft recently sat down with the TBN network. They had a video event, and he was on the panel. I think there was like 3 or 4 other people they spoke with, but he was one of the first. This is one of the most interesting things. They sat down with him, and he was wearing a hat, so he was cool gaming Satya Nadella. We've never really seen him in a hat before, so things are different. The world is in a different looking kaleidoscope. But he wanted to apply the same strategy, his vision for Xbox, which again, we want to note, contextually speaking, is under fire. They've had a bunch of black eyes with some business decisions that they've made as far as increasing prices, slashing jobs, cutting studios, shelving games, and not really following through on a lot of their mobile ambitions that they talked about, and kind of proving Lena Conrad about the what ends up happening when you become a monopoly and become too big for your own britches. He wants to apply the same strategy that made Microsoft Office a global staple, which is turning Xbox into a multi-platform service that reaches users on console, PC, mobile, cloud, and smart TVs. It doesn't sound too dissimilar from what like Netflix is doing, but Netflix is doing it in a fun way because they're run by a fun organization of executives or whatnot. But we'll see if Microsoft can emulate a very similar strategy because they'll be doing entertainment as well. The goal is to make Xbox less about hardware and more about being a universal publisher with recurring revenue through subscriptions like Game Pass. They've given up on the idea. I think they haven't officially said it. They're going to be delivering another console. I think it's planned the next 2 years or so. But I think they've already looked past that. They are seeing themselves as, we've eaten Activision. We are now Activision. So they are looking to deliver games, not deliver hardware, and at least not to the extent that they used to. The console wars are over, as I think, GameStop announced, which led to a whole different thing, which we'll have to be doing a cover on a different pod, where they brought in politics and the Trump admin. It was an ugly mess and it was another black guy from Microsoft because their Master Chief is now associated with fascism, which, if you've ever played any of the games, he is anti-fascist. There's a clear upside. Microsoft is already, already known as the biggest IP publisher out there because they bought Activision Blizzard. And Game Pass is doing relatively well. We'll see what happens when these price increases actually sink in and people have to make the choices of, do I go get eggs or do I play another month of 5 or 6 indie games that I like? But here's some of the things that are some of the blind spots. I don't think his ambition and euphemism we're looking at, which is gaming is not productivity software. There's no way to associate Windows with gaming the same way that Office was associated with Windows. Like, you needed Windows in order to get Office, and you needed Office in order to run well in Windows. You don't, while there are a lot of gamers on Windows, you don't need Windows to game. You can game on Android, you can game on Apple, not well, but you could. You can game on a PlayStation, you can game on a Nintendo Switch, you can game on those little, I think those little, what are they called? The little miniature consoles. You can get one of those for $80 and have 250 regular little casual games in your hand. You can game
Mario.
Exactly. You can game. My partner's back. You can game anywhere and do gaming in a different way. So I think he's missing that. I don't think there's going to be the same lock-in that we get when it comes to Microsoft and Office as Windows and gaming are considered. So now that you're back, and I've been rambling for 10, 15 minutes, but without you, what are your thoughts on Satya Nadella thinking he can take the soul of Office and put it into the Xbox and have similar success? I know it sounds good on paper,
Well,
but what's the
I'm gonna
actuality?
say, I'm gonna say something. I'm a heterosexual male. I prefer women, but what he's trying to do here is trying to put lipstick on a pig or make somebody wear panties that doesn't want to. That's
What
kind
if
of
it's a female pig? What if it's a female pig?
I'm having a little fun here, and I'm going to interject. The reason I had to step off there is my dad had a massive stroke, and we had to take a medical phone call there. So I apologize for having to step out, and I'm trying to have a little fun here to kind of change my own feelings. But you want to put profit margin in Xbox that you have on Office. Well, that ain't going to happen. Gamers, but you need Office. Kind of like you were just saying. I heard the last few minutes of you talking. Kind of like Office. Most people need Office. You need to write that resume. You need to create that document. You need to create that spreadsheet. You need to create that presentation. So you make that Office. You need Outlook for that email. So you go pay the Office tax. Kind of like you were saying. You don't need Battlefield 6. You don't need Call of Duty. We want it, we enjoy it, we have fun doing it. But you're asking for a profit margin on things that people need versus things that they don't. And when most people get to gaming, as you alluded to, it's last on the budget. It is for me. As much as I love it, it's last on the budget. My power bill, my water bill, my grocery bill, my cell phone bill, my internet bill, those things will be paid first because I need those to function. You could take my Xbox out of my house. I would be unhappy, but I would still get up in the morning and life would go on. It's a discretionary income. That's where you put stuff like that. You could live without Netflix. You could live without Hulu. Might not like it, but you could. And Sasha Nadella says we can get those profit margins that we get on Office on Xbox.
Well,
To your
here's the other
point,
thing too.
go ahead.
The idea of doing profit margins to this extent, and again, I'm not discounting. Sony's probably looking at every penny.
Mm-hmm.
They're figuring out ways to squeeze every penny, but it's not the sake of creativity or fun. And Microsoft, well, you can do that with Office because, ironically, they're not creative or fun. They can be as businesses, but they're not. They are susceptible to profit margins and bundling and scrimping on tiers like that. Where there's like, here's Office, standard, here's Office Deluxe, here's Office Home, here's Office Enterprise, here's all these different things, because the product itself can be manipulated and cut up in so many different ways because it doesn't really have a culture. It doesn't really have, reuse another phrase we've been using, a soul. Like, gamers identify with the game. They identify with the product. They identify with the brand on a much different level than they do with office productivity software. No one has a affinity for Google Sheets versus Google or Excel. I mean, they may prefer one or the other. They may have complaints that are very passionate about the different functions of it, but not to the same extent of like, I love this character. Like, if you are a God of War fan, you love the main character, you love his son, you love some of the villains in that. No one loves macros. No one loves italicizing things. No one loves the like 4,000 different fonts you're available to use. No one loves bundling Copilot with a bunch of presentations. They just do it. They have to do it. I'm saying all this to say that I think if we've already started to see when they start to focus on margins, they start to cut away and chip away at the fun parts of gaming. And if you're going to start doing this with Xbox the same way you similarly did with Windows, which again, massive success, you're going to lose, and this is a niche category, you're going to lose some of these people. They're going to fall off to the sides. They're going to fall off to the fray. They're going to go to other platforms. If they have to now choose between 4 different tiers of Game Pass, if they have to choose like, oh, on Saturdays I can get this game, on Sundays I can't get that game. If I have a subscription for here, I can get some benefits and deals Monday through. You're putting too many roadblocks into just saying, hey, I want to play this piece of property and I want to play it for hours on end because I love it. And so that's my worry, and that's what I'm thinking that Nadella is not seeing.
You're bringing up a very good point, because I thought about my childhood and even my young adulthood. What do we like to do when work is done? We've ate dinner, whether you've got kids or whether you don't, doesn't matter. What do we like to do? We like to sit down, relax, and have fun. Me, I reach over and I press the button on my Xbox. I press the button on my handheld. I press the button on my gaming PC. I don't think about it. When you start making gamers think about it, as you mentioned, that is where you lose them. And I keep track of my Reddit threads, and I keep track of the folks on Blue Sky. And people are thinking about their Game Pass subscription right now. That's not a good thing. And when Netflix goes up on price, when people have to think about that subscription, they think about not needing the product. And that's a problem. I think I lost my esteemed co-host. Boy, we're having a good time with technology today. So let's see what else I can find for us here to talk about. We're talking about the subscription risk. Let's see. I think I heard
I
my
think I'm
buddy
back,
come.
right?
Yep, you are back, my friend.
He's
We're just having
alive, like
we're
Frankenstein.
we're just having all kinds of technical snafus today, aren't we?
I have mentioned that there might be a ghost in the machine, so we'll blame it on that for right now. I think, I mean, we won't torture you guys any too much longer, but I think we got one more story, and then we'll get to the free play days. I think your story is actually what's up next, right? It is
Let's see which one do we have?
Amazon.
Yes, Amazon. Amazon has joined the "Let's fire people" analogy. They fired 14,000, I believe, and you know I don't know what the profits were over at Amazon, but the way I read this, they're
They
firing
they
them.
had they also had another good quarter. Now, again,
Uh,
it's
Go ahead.
upside down world with them in the investor world where the more people you fire, the better quarter you have, which for anybody who's ever a worker, someone who works for their dollars and doesn't just put money into a slot machine and pull the wheel, we're all sitting there scratching our heads. You've worked retail, we've worked, service, we worked, architecture, whatever job you have. The idea is that when you're doing well, you have more people. That's how businesses expand. That's the idea of franchising and making your business bigger, and more sales should equal more people. More people should equal more sales. That is the replica for capitalism. But when it comes to stock, it's ironic and it's sad and it's dark, but it's the less people you have, the better you're doing because the margins are much bigger. We need more margins, less products, less people, bigger margins. And so to not to cut you out or interrupt you, I'm sorry about that, but I went on a rant because they again ended with a great quarter, and then the news of the $14,000 cut just like skyrocketed even more. And it's sad that we're living in a society that rewards that kind of thing. But go ahead.
14,000 corporate roles, and the companies. Well, number one, it says 14,000 corporate roles. I want to make sure I've got that clear. And in the press release, it mentions that I'm going to try to pronounce his name. Galletti positioned the cuts as a continuation of Amazon's effort to reduce bureaucracy, remove layers, and shift resources to ensure we're investing in our biggest bets and what matters most to our customers, current and future needs. She emphasized the company was already seeing results from early restructuring, with teams supposedly moving faster and employees feeling more ownership. For today, who says that these layoffs stop at 14,000? Galletti also leaned heavily into the language of empowerment, invoking CEO Andy Jassy's call call to operate the world's largest startup. So, as you said in your post, the phrase "strengthening culture and teams" reads less like reassurance and more like PR reflex. I agree with that 100%, and I think Microsoft, Google, and anybody that does these layoffs fall within this same feeling. Now, I don't know what Amazon's recent numbers were, but I'm aware that you buy anything at Amazon. I'm also aware that you watch a lot of Prime Video, or I do, for movies and whatnot, and that generally has to be paid for and is paid for as part of our Amazon Prime subscriptions. Or if you're not a Prime member, you're paying for it as a rental or a purchase. Now, with that being said, anytime, and I say this every time, Anytime people are losing jobs in mass numbers, I'm an unhappy person. No matter if it's Amazon, no matter if it's Microsoft, Lenovo, Apple makes no difference to me. Do not cut people's jobs in mass when you're a multi-billion-dollar company. Now, I am still a believer of when you cut jobs like this, somebody up the chain failed because some projects didn't get done and you feel these employees are no longer needed. You hired these employees for a purpose. So, what did not get done or what number did not get hit for you to say go fire 14,000 people? I want to fire the person that didn't get the project done, that was over, whatever the reasons were that you hired these 14,000 people. Because what happens? They pay the severance, whatever that may be. I hope these men and women got great severance packages, and they wash their hands of you. And it'll kind of be like we talked about last week. What was it that Sasha Nadella got? Was it $96 million? I believe it was. It was $96 million. And we have terminated thousands of people at Microsoft in this calendar year. Thousands of people. But you just gave your CEO $96 million. And there's, business analysts out there going, well, David, you've got to make these companies lean so they last and they're productive. And we're planning for 2040 and 2050 of where we're going to be, yada, 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 yada. I hear you, Mr. and Mrs. Analyst. But this workforce isn't going to be your primary workforce in 2040 and 2050. That's when this workforce will be in their retirement age. So I don't want to hear that you hit record profit numbers, but you fired 14,000 people. I don't want to hear from Microsoft you had a good quarter. You gave your CEO $96 million in stocks and shares, or ever how you gave it to him. It shows on his tax form that he earned $96 million of something. Somebody has to start being responsible when these companies do this. Sorry, I think I'm done.
Well, I mean, I'm ranting with you. The idea, and one thing that I noticed from his quote, where it says, or she, sorry, emphasized that the company is already seeing results from earlier restructuring, with teams supposedly moving faster and employees, quote, feeling more ownership. You know what that means? And that what I've always understood that to be, as someone who's been a worker, more ownership means that I have to do more, but I don't get paid more.
Right. Right.
You have more responsibility, not more pay. And that's what a lot of this, like, hey, I'm allowed to flatten the middle, get rid of all those middle managers, and make the lower rung employees do a lot of the what the manager should be doing as far as organizing, scheduling, HR, all that other stuff. We're just getting rid of all that and just saying, hey, you young employees, do more stuff, but we're not going to pay you more. And that's how we maintain those large margins that we love to give our investors. That stuff is, to your point, is what's infuriating, I think. And again, it's all indicative of capitalism. Like the number has to go up in every form, in everything, in gaming, in food, and everything that we enjoy. The number has to go up. It can never go flat. It can never be stagnant. You can't be like, hey, I'm going to get to a point where Satya Nadella's pay is always $9 million every year, just flat. $9 million is great to live off of. We hit the $9 million mark for our CEO. Our products are making a 2% margin every year, or the same 2%. We provide a great product. We maintain the same amount of employees over 30 years. We've been doing this level of good for 30 years, like Ben and Jerry's or something. We don't need to go up every quarter, meaning we need to fire more and more people in order to keep that margin, in order for that number to look like it's still going up, 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 and up. That is, to your point in the rant, unfortunate. Now, again, these are corporate jobs, which begs the question. Usually they get rid of, in mass like this, the drivers, the delivery people. That may be the other shoe to fall. They got rid of 14,000 corporate jobs, which is probably billions worth of dollars as far as offering people 401ks and, retirement and all that other stuff. But if they're going to get rid of even more, if they want to generate even more margins, they're going to start cutting some of those drivers and using Waymos and some BS like that in order to deliver package more of the drone flights and unnecessary things, using AI to write and schedule all of the routes for all these people. I don't want to see any of that. I wish we could stop, but it seems like we're on a a roller coaster ride, and we're just have to ride it to the end. And hopefully, when that end does happen, we can have a better conversation about how we want businesses to run, how we provide services. If this is the case, if you feel like you are on this roller coaster, you want to get off too, you can always buy locally. It's going to be a little harder, more convoluted, more, it's going to take more time and effort for me to do so. But I'm trying to, in my own personal life, buy locally. If I need to go to a
Me too.
store, then you do that. It may, I don't get things delivered in 2 minutes from Amazon. You shop elsewhere. Etsy's a good place for a lot of stuff. People who create things with their own hands will deliver stuff to you. So there are ways to kind of work around the system until we can figure out a way to repair it. But I am here for the 14,000 people who have lost their jobs, even if it's corporate jobs. And we need to figure out a way to hold these big decision makers responsible. The person who's whispering in everyone's ear about, when this AI bubble busts, I don't want them jumping off with a giant golden parachute of billions of dollars while the rest of us are left holding the bag.
I predict, and I'm going to make a prediction here because you and I were here for it. Maybe we weren't old enough to understand everything that was going on at the time, but for the older folks, you remember the dot-com bust. There's going to be an AI bust, and it's going to come sooner than later. I think it reminds me of the Battlefield 6 Battle Royale mode that just came out yesterday. I'm gonna throw a little gaming in this. When you're playing that, every so often your circle gets smaller, and that's kind of what I'm feeling happen with AI. Because even to throw it back to the Canva announcement, they've got to make margins to pay for all that AI to make sure, and that's why they kept harping on it during the presentation, because they've made that investment. A lot of companies have made that investment, just like a lot of businesses during the dot-com bust had made that investment, thousands or millions of dollars. .com, 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 .com. Then it got to be a saturated market, and people didn't want certain things. AI going to be a saturated market. People aren't going to want certain things. Sounds familiar, doesn't it?
Very much so. With that being said, we will try and end on a much more positive note with gaming. Let everybody know what our free play day is. What can we go into the weekend happy about
Well,
and not as
well,
frustrated?
you got a lot of choices this weekend. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You got 7 games this weekend
Yeah,
on
that's a
free
lot.
play days. So maybe Xbox is trying to make you feel good with that new price increase you've got coming. By the way, my free pricing or my free price increase, boy, my price increase hit
Freudian slip.
today. My price increase for a Game Pass Ultimate hit today. I will share with our listeners and our watchers what I did. Go to Amazon, buy the 3-month Game Pass Ultimate I bought it for $54.99 and applied that to my account. I bought several of these things. Now, I would suggest you do the same. I have seen that number bounce between 54, 56, and 59. So as when I did it this week, it was 54, but the actual cost showed up on my account was the new $30 and some change after tax. So to
Now,
jump on
we
in,
should also note though, these things don't roll over. So apply them as chronologically. So if you have for 3 months, don't think you can load up 4 of these and you'll be good for the rest of the year. You need to, at the end of 3 months, apply the next one. Now you can buy them all at once, but make sure you don't say, all right, I'm going to put in the code, 4 different codes, and think like I'm good for the year. It doesn't work that way. You will lose the other 3. Just to have a note. Personal experience. Don't lose your money.
Somebody has done that before. Won't
What?
won't call any names, but it might be my buddy on the other side of the screen. But anyway, let's jump on into
Yes.
let's jump on into some free play days. Free play days were Thursday, October 30th. Yesterday, you can play them over Halloween all the way to Sunday, November 2nd. We have Call of Duty Black Ops 6 multiplayer and zombie. We have Dragon Ball, I'm going to say Xenoverse 2 for console and PC. We had Dead by Daylight, Canton, and Warhammer 4000 Rogue Trader console and PC, and also available this week without membership is a 2-hour time trial of Post Trauma, and you can get a Yes Your Grace for no membership, so you don't even have to have a membership. You can just try that one out. Yes, Your Grace. I haven't heard of that one, so that'll be one that I'll have to try out. And as I always like to mention, make sure you grab the discounts, folks. These discounts on free play days, I've never seen them not be pretty good. So, Call of Duty Black Ops 6 multiplayer and zombies is down to $55.99 from $69.99. So, there you go. I'm going to bring this up. If you're not a Game Pass Ultimate member, you want to buy the game or you want to dump Game Pass and still play Call of Duty, there it is. Get it for $55.99. The Dragon Ball Xenoverse 2 is $7.99. That is down from $19.99. That is also a 5-star game. Make sure you check that out. Dead by Daylight is a 4-star game, $29.99 down to $11.99. So make sure you check that one out. 4 5-star games are usually pretty good by the majority. We have Canton, the console edition, $16.99 down to only $3.39. And Warhammer 40,000 Rogue Trader is a 5-star game. I have to try that one out. $49.99 down to $22.49. And last but not least, the last two, Yes, Your Grace. That is a 5-star game. It's a 5-star game I haven't heard of. It is just $19.99. And Post Trauma is also a 5-star game. That is $9.74 down from $14.99. So Xbox is kind of putting it out there for Halloween this weekend. You got a good selection of games to choose from. Got some in there that I haven't heard of. But I'm going to ask my buddy here, are you going to try any of these games out this week?
No, I should say yes, but I'm not. And I'm being honest because a game called Dispatch came out. And it is like a Telltale game, but with amazing voice acting, amazing animation. It is about uh, a person who works dispatch in a superhero world. So when superheroes need to call in for support, when they need to call in for medical, when they need to call for HR, all these kind of mundane things. This guy, you play a character who kind of navigates all of that, and you can make choices. It's not it's not an action pack, it's not an RPG, anything like that, but it, like I said, Telltale. So you get decision making chains that you can do that initiate all kinds of different storylines. And the storylines, like I said, they got an amazing voice cast. If you just want something super casual that doesn't require a lot from you, as far as constantly watching the screen and having your twitch fiber muscles and your fingers working at 100%, I would suggest this game. It just came out about 2 weeks ago, I want to say. You can get it on Steam. I think you can get it on Xbox and PlayStation as well. I got it on Steam. But if you're into those kind of games, like the Telltale, like the what is it? I think they made a Batman one. There was The Walking Dead is a big one for them. If you're into that kind of gameplay, Dispatch, very good game. The first 2 chapters are out. I believe that they got 2 more coming. I think they're going to have a total of 6 at some point. So I'd recommend, if you can wait to get all 6. I think they're going to have them out by the end of next year, or you can jump in right now. Go check out the trailer on YouTube, see if you like it. But that's what I'll be playing this weekend. How about yourself?
Well, if I get some time to game this weekend, like I said, my father's not doing very well, so that may be where my attention is focused. But I hope I get some time to step away and kind of clear my head. If I do that, I'm going to be doing that with my Lenovo Legion Go in hand. Um, you can play that lovely thing anywhere as long as you have a battery pack. So I will probably jump in there and try out. Let's see, which one was it? I want to try Dead by Daylight, and I also want to try the one above, the one below that. Let's see, Warhammer 40,000 Rogue Trader. I have heard that's a pretty good game. I have never picked it up and tried it too much, and I do like a good story and a good RPG. And as always, something we haven't mentioned here on any of our pods because it's not in Game Pass, folks. Call of Duty has competition. Battlefield 6 is no joke. And the comments and support for this game just keep coming. And the Battle Royale mode, Battlefield, it's Red Sec, I believe it is free. I've had a chance to tinker with that. People are also clamoring to that thing. So if it's not on the Game Pass. So this is where you make a decision here. Are you going to go buy Battlefield 6? And I'll tell you what I did. I purchased Battlefield 6, but what I did was I purchased it for the PC because one, I can play that on my handheld, two, I can play that on my PC, and three, I can stream it with GeForce Now when I need to. Now, something I also noticed, the Xbox version. I've got to say it. People have been talking about it. You're not getting your high frame rates and your high resolution in Battlefield 6. If you notice, it's dropping down to 720p to achieve those frame rates. So that's something to keep in mind. I mean, if you want the full experience and you've got that 4K TV with 120 hertz up on the wall and it's 85 inches and you want a immersive Battlefield experience, the game offers it. I enjoy the game quite a bit, but the Xbox Series X falls a little short here. So, just keep that in mind.
Okay, where can people find you if they want to chit chat with you about specs, games, or anything else this weekend?
Blue Sky only for right now. David PAJ 1978. I do read other places, but I interact mostly on Blue Sky. So that's David PAJ 1978. And I know you've got a comic nickname over there. So where are you, my friend?
I'm at Happy Hulk at Blue Sky as well. So you can, the words happy and Hulk put together. You can find me over there. I do talk politics, so be
I
forewarned.
think you.
But I
I
also
think
talk.
you need a Happy Hulk T-shirt. I was thinking about that. I think you need a Happy Hulk
I'm
T-shirt.
gonna have to make one created. I will go on Etsy and talk with some creators who make some T-shirts, and if I can get those made, maybe you guys can get some as well if you're a Hulk fan. If not, I also talk about X-Men. X-Men is my other biggest comic book fandom. That's where I talk about it on Blue Sky. So, and if not there, you can find me on Threads, laughing at all kinds of memes and things like that, more funnier stuff, more movie related. We want everyone to try and go and enjoy the weekend. If you celebrate Halloween, and by celebrate, I mean eat lots of candy and enjoy
Yeah.
kids knocking at your door. Please do so. Do so responsibly. Look out for everyone. If as much as you can, you see kids in the neighborhood that want to have a good time, need to have a good time. Help them out. If you don't, turn off your lights. Watch a good movie. Enjoy whatever you're going to do inside. If you're going to go outside and you want to be away from people, go to a park. I don't think kids are going to be handing out candies at the park. If you want to do something else, like we always say at the end of this pod, go enjoy to the fullest extent. Cooking, reading, watching movies, listening to music, conversation. If you guys are going to, you have a partner, cuddling, whatever it is you're going to do, walking your dog, enjoy it. And we will see you again next weekend. Hopefully happier and healthier than we saw you today because you guys enjoyed something. Have a good night.
Take care, folks. Thank you.
In the land of ones and zeros.